Welcome to the Octopus Knight, one of the greatest chess games ever played. This is Game 16 from the 1985 World Championship match between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov. The fiercest rivalry in chess history. Kasparov, the young challenger, would plant a knight on d3 so powerful that it earned the nickname the Octopus, controlling 8 squares and paralyzing Karpov's entire position for 18 moves. Chess Informant readers voted this the best game of their first 64 issues. Sit back and watch a masterclass in positional domination. Karpov opens with king's pawn to f4, his favored weapon in this match, aiming for sharp Sicilian battles. Kasparov replies with the Sicilian defense, his signature opening. He wants a complex fight where his dynamic style can shine. Knight to f3, the most popular continuation. Karpov develops naturally before committing to a pawn structure. i6, setting up the Paulsen or Tatveda variation of the Sicilian. Kasparov keeps his options flexible. d4, opening the center. This is the open Sicilian. Both sides will get chances, but the game will be sharp. Kasparov captures on d4, accepting the typical Sicilian pawn exchange. Black gets the semi-open c-file in return. Knight recaptures on d4, centralizing the piece. Karpov now has a strong knight in the heart of the board. Knight to chix, developing with tempo by attacking the centralized white knight. A logical and aggressive move. Knight jumps to b5. Karpov aims for the aggressive nb5 d6 setup, threatening to plant a knight on z6, preventing the knight from invading on 6. This gives black a solid but slightly passive pawn structure. 4. The Marasi bind setup. Karpov clamps down on the d5 square, trying to restrict black's counterplay. Knight to f6, developing the kingside knight and putting pressure on e4. Kasparov is playing energetically. The other knight develops to c3, reinforcing control over d5 and e4. Karpov completes his knight development. e6, kicking the knight from b5. This is a standard Sicilian move, gaining space on the queen side while developing. The knight retreats to a3, an awkward square. This knight will struggle to find an active post, and Kasparov will exploit that. d5, a principled central strike. Kasparov challenges white's center immediately, refusing to let Karpov establish a bind. Karpov captures on d5, opening the position. The pawn structure is about to transform dramatically. Kasparov recaptures with the e-pawn, creating an isolated pawn on d5, but gaining active piece play in return. Karpov takes on d5, creating a pass pawn, but this pawn could become either a strength or a weakness. Knight jumps to b4. This is the start of Kasparov's deep plan. The knight is heading for the legendary d3 square. Bishop to e2, a modest developing move. Karpov is playing solidly, unaware of the storm that's brewing. Bishop to c5, developing actively and eyeing the f2 square. Every black piece is finding purpose rapidly. Karpov castles kingside, putting his king to safety. A necessary move, but the position is already getting complicated. Kasparov castles as well. Both kings are safe, and now the real battle for the center and initiative begins. Bishop to f3, supporting the d5 pawn and developing to a natural diagonal. Karpov wants to keep his passed pawn. Bishop to 5, an excellent developing move. The bishop controls key light squares and supports the knight's journey to d3. Bishop to g5, pinning the knight on f6 against the queen. Karpov tries to create some pressure of his own. Rook to 8, activating along the e-file. The rook puts latent pressure on e2 and prepares for central action. Queen to d2, connecting the rooks and preparing to swing the queen to the king side if needed. b5. A sharp pawn advance on the queen side, gaining space and preparing to push the pawn further. Kasparov plays with energy on both flanks. Rook to done, supporting the passed d-pawn and centralizing. Karpov is playing logically, but what comes next changes everything. Knight to d3. The Octopus Knight lands. This is the move that defines the entire game. The knight on d3 controls 8 squares, paralyzes white's position, and cannot be captured without devastating consequences. It will sit here for the next 18 moves, slowly strangling Karpov's position. Knight retreats to bone, a painful admission. White's knight on e3 was already misplaced, and now it goes all the way back to the first rank. The Octopus Knight on d3 is untouchable. h6, putting the question to the bishop on g5. Kasparov methodically improves his position, while the Octopus Knight dominates from d3. Bishop retreats to h4, maintaining the pin on f6 purity. But with the knight rooted on d3, White's position is becoming increasingly passive. b4. The pawn advances with tempo, chasing the knight from c3 and gaining more space. Kasparov squeezes on both sides of the board while d3 remains occupied. Knight to f4, push to the rim. The old saying goes, a knight on the rim is dim. Karpov now has 2 misplaced knights, while Kasparov's octopus controls the center. Bishop to d6, repositioning to a more active diagonal. The bishop supports the knight on d3 and eyes the king side. Bishop to g3, but Kasparov has a devastating exchange ready. The bishop on g3 will soon be traded, leaving white with even fewer active pieces. Rook to sate, seizing the open c-file. Every one of Kasparov's pieces is perfectly placed, while Karpov's army is discoordinated. b, trying to stabilize the queen side, but this further weakens the dark squares around white's position. The Octopus Knight on d3 grows even stronger. g, a bold king side pawn storm. Kasparov launches an attack on the other flank. With the Octopus Knight paralyzing white's center, Karpov cannot respond effectively to threats on both wings. Karpov trades bishops. He has to eliminate some of black's attacking pieces, but this trades away one of his few remaining active pieces. Queen recaptures, on 6 to now. Now the queen joins the attack alongside the Octopus Knight, creating a fearsome battery in the center. g3, weakening the kingside light squares to prevent g4, g3. But the damage is accumulating. Karpov is running out of good moves. Knight to d7, rerouting the second knight for better prospects. Meanwhile, the Octopus on d3 continues its stranglehold on the position. Bishop to g2, repositioning to the long diagonal. Karpov tries to activate his bishop, but the position is already deeply compromised. Queen to fix, putting pressure on f2 and the entire kingside. The queen and the Octopus Knight form a devastating partnership. a3, trying to undermine black's queenside pawn chain. But this opens the a-file for black's rook, another concession. a5, reinforcing the b4 pawn and keeping the queenside locked. Kasparov's position is a masterclass in strategic domination. Karpov captures on b4, opening the a-file. But this plays directly into Kasparov's hands. Kasparov recaptures with the a-pawn, opening the a-file for the rook. The rook will have a highway into white's position. Queen to a2, trying to create some activity on the a-file. But Karpov's pieces remain awkwardly placed around the immovable Octopus Knight. Bishop to g6, repositioning the bishop to a stronger diagonal. The bishop now targets c2 and supports the octopus from a safe distance. 6. Karpov desperately pushes his passed pawn forward. It looks threatening, but Kasparov has everything calculated. g4. The kingside storm continues. Kasparov ignores the passed pawn and increases the pressure on White's king. The timing is brilliant. The Octopus Knight still holds the center. Queen to d2, retreating to support the d-pawn. Karpov is losing coordination, shuffling his queen back and forth while Kasparov methodically increases the pressure. King to d7, a prophylactic move. Kasparov steps off the back rank, avoiding any future back rank tricks. Calm and precise. 3. A desperate attempt to challenge the g4 pawn and open lines for the rook. But this fatally weakens the king side. The fortress is crumbling. Queen takes d6. Kasparov calmly captures the passed pawn, removing White's only trump card. The Octopus Knight on d3 still reigns supreme. Karpov captures on g4, winning a pawn, but the position is now wide open. White's king is dangerously exposed. Queen to d4 with check. Kasparov's queen invades the center with devastating effect. The check gains a crucial tempo. King to hone, the only legal move. White's king huddles in the corner while Kasparov's pieces swarm the board. Knight to f6, rerouting the knight to strike at the exposed g4 pawn and preparing the decisive combination. Rook to fowler, trying to hold the kingside together. But Kasparov has a lethal sequence prepared. The octopus is about to strike its final blow. Knight to f4. Both black knights are now powerfully centralized. The octopus on d3 and the knight on fr form a devastating pair, controlling almost the entire board. Karpov finally captures the Octopus Knight. After 18 legendary moves on d3, the knight falls, but at a terrible cost. Karpov's queen is now exposed. Knight to f2 with check, a fork. The knight strikes from e4 to fa to f2, forking the king and the queen. This is the payoff for the entire strategy. The Octopus Knight's sacrifice was the setup for this crushing blow. Rook captures the knight on f2 to y. Karpov has no choice. The fork forces his hand, and the queen falls. Bishop takes the queen on d3. Kasparov has won White's queen for a knight and bishop, a massive material advantage. The octopus's legacy is complete. Rook moves to d2, trying to generate some counterplay against the bishop. But down a queen, Karpov is fighting for survival. Queen to e3, a dominating move. The queen controls the entire board and threatens to infiltrate decisively. The endgame technique begins. Rook captures the bishop on d3, recovering some material. But Kasparov's queen and rooks are too powerful. Rook to cone, crashing onto the back rank with devastating effect. The rook invades and threatens to wreak havoc. Knight to b2, trying to defend. But White's pieces are tangled and cannot coordinate against Kasparov's onslaught. Queen to f2, threatening checkmate and tying down every white piece. The queen dominates from f2, controlling crucial squares. Knight to d2, a desperate defensive attempt. Karpov's position is collapsing under the relentless pressure. Rook takes done with check. Kasparov exchanges into a one endgame. The combination is precise and brutal. Knight recaptures on done, forced. But Kasparov has one final blow prepared. Rook to a1 check. Karpov resigns. There is no defense. After knight takes Ioni, queen takes far wins easily, and if the knight stays, checkmate follows shortly. A magnificent victory for Kasparov. The Octopus Knight game goes down as one of the greatest chess games ever played. And that is the Octopus Knight. Karpov resigns after 40 moves. Kasparov's knight on d3 sat untouched for 18 moves, strangling White's position while Kasparov attacked on both flanks. When Karpov finally captured it, the fork on f2 won the queen and sealed the game. This victory was pivotal in the 1985 World Championship match. Kasparov would go on to dethrone Karpov and become the 13th world champion. Want to play and improve your own chess? Visit chess99.com. Free, fast, and fun chess for everyone.